طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Let's continue with the slides of the first chapter. We looked last time at segmentation and how we can protect the CPS devices through segmentation. Okay, and we said that we can provide segmentation at different level. We can do it through using different method. We can use subnetting, and we explained how we can do segmentation by dividing our network into different subnets separated by some let's say separated network by routers with firewalls. We can have subnetting or segmentation by using encryption. You divide your data based on the encryption. By using VLAN, if you are using switches, we can use access control list in the firewall to specify let's say the permitted and denied access to some specific CPS. And we mentioned the SDN or software defined networking. We mentioned also the relation between the different types of CPS and the need of communication between those CPS over some types of IT networks that does have multi-layers of functionality. And we say that we can gather those CPS that have the same functionality. They can be gathered as in the same place, okay, or belonging to the same segment to provide the same control or the same security policies or measures for those devices that have the same functionality. Okay, this is one way of doing segmentation. We talked about the state-aware protocols, okay, where we need to control the protocol, specifically communication between the different devices or components that make your CPS. Okay, and we mentioned that the protocol that is used to allow the communication with those part or CPS component needs to be monitored in order just to prevent any unwanted action or control sent to those CPS. We considered as a dimension of segmentation the access time. Okay, so that the time where, let's say, some applications will access CPS, will allow to access those CPS directly. You can specify the time or the convenient time for access. And we gave an example when we gave, for instance, when we mentioned the iPhone application giving permission to access the camera, and that camera will trigger will be on while you were typing on your word processing, for instance, on your mobile phone, which is not a convenient time. That means at that time, the camera should not be on, and it is not a convenient time. And you can do segmentation by specifying which time this CPS can run or which time I can access this CPS, and so on. And we said also we can do segmentation based on the role-based access control. That means you can segment, you do segment. It is a kind of segmentation where you create groups and you give permission to those groups to do some function, to do some particular task or job, okay, and to access maybe some CPS and so on. This is another dimension, another type of segmentation. We are separating. It's like you are ordering or managing the access to those CPS devices based on some types of role that are needed or role that is needed for that specific access to the specific CPS. Now, in terms of defensive dimensionality, here we talk about what kind of defensive techniques or a strategy we can do to protect our CPS devices. We do have what is known as a defense in depth. Defense in depth means that you do have layered defenses. What is meant by layered defenses? That means before you, it's like you have a concentric wall. That means you do have, let's say you do have 4 walls to reach a CPS device. We'll have 4 doors. I will open the first door. I will go and find the second door. I will go and through. I will find another third door. I will go, I will open it, and I will find another fourth door just to reach my CPS device. This is what is meant by a defense in depth. That means you are not relying only on one layer of protection with a security measure to protect your CPS. You will have many types of layers. Like for instance, I will put an example, Shabab. An example of multi-layers.
And maybe يكون في security guards outside the building, but then
Good.
inside you need to
Yes.
scan your ID.
Yes.
But then
Good.
going also inside again, you need to scan your fingerprint to
Good.
get
Very good.
into the office, maybe.
Yes. Let's say this is, for instance, CPS. Okay, this is my CPS device. So CPS device that you want to protect. What you will do, you will create many layers. Okay, I will create the first layer, and we'll have another type of layer of protection. And this layer, this is what I mean by concentric walls or preventive ways of accessing, like in an operating system. Okay, when you go to an operating system, for instance, you do have the kernel or the core of the operating system at the inside, and you don't allow, for instance, a normal user, to get inside that kernel or to the core of the operating system. This is the same analogy where you do have here many types of layer. Okay, I might have maybe, as you mentioned, I can have, for instance, this first layer can be maybe a firewall. Okay, I can have another layer where you do have, for instance, an access to an IDS or IPS. I can have a router with some access control. As you mentioned, I can have here some guard, some fingerprint, some two-factor authentication. I can have the doors locked until I can reach my that CPS. This is what is known as a layered or defense in depth. That means it's like you do have a castle and you try to protect your castle. Okay, I will put here a group of soldiers at the first line, at the second line, third, fourth line. If this one is defeated, let's say the enemy will find another group of army. If it is defeated, it will find another group of defense or army, and so on until it reaches, let's say, all the defenses are ruined. So let's say the attacker or the enemy can access that CPS. Okay, that means if your enemy or your hacker will break down the first protection or the first layer, okay, there are other further layers, okay, that can be found in order just to make sure that we do have, let's say, a good protection. Now, the second type of prevention, which is known as a defense in breadth. Now, let's say I do have another CPS. Okay, I do have here another CPS. Let's go to another. Okay, this is one CPS. This is another CPS device. I might have another CPS, for instance. Let's choose this one. Okay, and those CPS belongs to an infrastructure, to critical infrastructure. Okay, this is that's considered as CPS 1. I can have, for instance, another CPS. CPS 2. I might have another CPS 3 as well. Okay. Now you do have a malicious attacker. Okay, this is a malicious attacker who is trying to attack this CPS. Okay, when he finished with this CPS, he will move to his second target, which is this one. When he finishes with CPS2, he will go and attack the CPS3. Okay, why he is able to successfully damage, for instance, or to shut down CPS1, 2, and 3, because he is using, let's say, the concept of divide and conquer approach. What is meant by divide and conquer? Because he cannot, let's say, attack them all together. Okay, he will divide them, because the way the, let's say, the architecture of my critical infrastructure is based on each CPS is on its own. But what if, for instance, we do have some type of collaboration, okay, or some type of communication between, this blue is the communication, legitimate communication, okay, or continuous communication between, or update or synchronization, call it whatever, between CPS1, 2, and 3. In case of this is attacked, CPS1 is attacked, automatically all other CPS are aware about such attack, and they will help to, let's say, to defend themselves and the other CPS or the whole network against any attack. This is known as a defense in breadth. That means, okay, for instance, it's like instead of protecting one single castle, you will protect all the castles that belongs to you. If one castle is attacked, or the other one are some types of coordination between them that will trigger defense mechanism to protect all those castles. Okay, it's like, for instance, if this one is attacked and this one has a few soldiers, and the other castle has hundreds of soldiers. If this one is attacked, this one, with the collaboration of CPS2, this CPS2 will send, let's say, a group of soldiers, okay, to help the CPS1 or to the other castle to defend against the enemy. Okay, it will be some types of collaboration between those different types of CPS. Okay, they are not. It's like when you see in the animals, for instance, in انما ياكل الذئب من الغنم، انما ياكل الذئب من الغنم من الشاة القاسية، صح ولا لا شباب؟ The same way. Okay, if each one or each device is working on its own, it is easy for an attacker to attack that device. But if there are some cooperation, some collaboration, okay, touching the CPS means you are going to touch CPS2, you are going to attack CPS3. That means it is in the interest of all those remaining CPS to collaborate, to coordinate, and defend against this attack. It is their benefit to eliminate this attacker, because he is considered as a threat to other CPS. These types of defense is known as a defense in breadth. Clear يا شباب?
Yes, clear.
Clear.
Clear, doctor.
So this is what we meant by defense in breadth. As we mentioned, there will be some types of defense between those multiple attacks. We do have another type of defense is using what is known as a user configurable database or data collection and logging. And here we talk about the data collection, specifically here for the personnel CPS. And if you remember, when we specified, we said that we do have infrastructural CPS and we do have personal CPS. When we talk about personal CPS, we are talking about at the small scale, like a smartwatch or some medical devices that are planted in patient's body. Okay, and by collecting the data, it is very useful both for the user and for understand the characteristics of the groups. When you do have data and you are collecting data about some specific groups or some specific patients, for instance, who have blood pressure problem, or who have sugar level problem, for instance. Okay, it is very helpful to consider how can you, for instance, keep that data private. How can you store or save that data in a manner to defend against any breach against any privacy of such data. Okay, and the way the data is collected, for instance, how are you going to collect that data? And when you talk about the privacy, okay, we talk about the identification of the data itself. What we mean by identification of the data, we mean by, if you know the data, for instance, okay, if you know the data, you might automatically identify the kind of data, or the owner of the data, or it is referring about which person, or you automatically identify the ID of the owner of that data. And here we say the default assumption must be that all the user's data is private. That means one way of, let's say, defending against any another attack or any type of attack is to keep the data as private. Specifically, when we talk about CPS, whether at the infrastructure or personal CPS, we assume that by default, the data that is read or collected by those CPS devices should be kept secret, should be kept private. Okay, and also we need that the users, if we are talking about the personal CPS, that means if that data will be shared by the device, the user should be aware. You should tell the user who is holding, for instance, that smartwatch, who has that medical device implemented in his body, for instance. He should know that the data that is collected by that device will be shared with, let's say, a number of doctors, with the hospitals and whatever. Okay, so this is one way of keeping the data private and defending against, let's say, any breach to that data and, let's say, touching the confidentiality objective. Also, we talk about not only telling them what is that the data will be shared, and you have to tell them what data, what exactly is being shared and with whom. Because when you say that you do have a smartwatch, for instance, maybe the smartwatch is collecting the temperature data, and it is collecting your location, it is collecting your heart beat, for instance. Okay, and you have to tell exactly for that guy who has purchased that smartwatch that this smartwatch is automatically sending, let's say, your location by default to XYZ organization, or is sending your heartbeat to ABC, and so on. So you have to specify what type of data is sent. Okay, it is shared, that the data is shared, and what is shared, and with whom it is shared. This is very important when we talk about user configurable data and collection or logging. That means we are logging everything. We are gathering the information, okay, about the data itself. For instance, sometimes you do find some organization or some company, they are interested to compare the fitness activity of group, for example. Okay, they are doing some studies and they want to see, let's say, the activity done by people who are aged between, let's say, 40 and 50. Okay, and anyone who has purchased that watch, okay, the data of the number of steps walked by that owner of that watch, for instance, or a smartwatch, is automatically sent to that organization. Such information, some users might consider that as a breach to the confidentiality of their data. Okay, and they need to be aware about such activity, that collector, that smartwatch is collecting this and this data, and this data is sent to XYZ and to this and this and this. This is a very important concept with regard to the privacy of data, specifically with regard to the personal CPS devices. Another way of, or let's say, layer of defense or way of defense is what is known as pattern obfuscation. Obfuscation means tashwish. Here we talk about pattern obfuscation. Any idea, Shabab, from the title? What is meant by pattern obfuscation? What is a pattern? When you talk about a pattern,
something that it's repeated or something.
Yes, something that is repeated. طيب, obfuscation. خلاص قلنا we say it is تشويش. So how can a pattern obfuscation can be considered as a method or a way for protecting CPS?
Maybe adding something that would make the attacker think they're getting good information, but they're not getting anything. So you can close up the patch before he finds out, something like that.
No, we are talking about pattern. Pattern. Let's think about, you have a factory, okay? And it's like when you have a factory, and when you look at, let's say, the energy emitted by that factory through, let's say, smoke, okay, at some time, you will see that there are a lot of smoke coming out from that, or it is delivered by that factory, okay? What is meant by when you see, let's say, it's like when you see a car. And when you see a car and you see the smoke coming out from the exhaust, what does that mean? Yes, Shabab?
That the car is working, or
is working, the engine is on, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you see an exhaustive, let's say, huge smoke going out from the exhaust, that means someone who is maybe pressing the gear or the gauge. Okay, that means someone is inside. And the same, this is some pattern, this is some indication that something is happening. And we can apply it to the CPS environment. When you see, for instance, a manufacturer, okay, and there is a lot of smoke coming out from that, let's say, or degage from that factory infrastructure, okay, it means that there is, let's say, an important process that is happening inside that factory, which means now the machines are working at that let's say, at their high level, for instance. And knowing such information, just from an outsider, like an attacker, you see, yes, now this is the convenient time to attack that manufacturer, because it is at its maximum, okay, working of its machines. So it is the time to attack that factory in order to induce a bigger impact and damage to the factory. It's not like when you are coming at the evening, for instance, in the evening, there is nothing, all the machines are turned off. And if you are attacking the machines, it means you are not going to affect anything. But if you are attacking a production line of making cars or making computers or whatever the items that factory is doing, and it is on its, let's say, highest time of production, and you can see that from maybe from the noise of the machines, you can see it from maybe from, as I mentioned, from the smoke, okay? That means it gives you an indication that this is the good time to, it is, let's say, on its high, let's say, stage of, there is an important process happening, and it is the time of, let's say, the convenient time or appropriate time to attack such organization or such manufacturer. By now, when we go, if we want to prevent such information to be given freely to that guy, for example, to the attacker, we need to obfuscate the pattern of use. That means instead, for instance, of having every day the manufacturer is working on its highest capacity every day at 10 o'clock in the morning, between 10 and 12, we need to change that time. Okay, today, maybe this week I will do it from 10 to 12. We'll 2 days from 10 to 12, another day from 9 to 11, another day from 2 to 5, and so on. That means anyone who is monitoring, who is using, who is watching, okay, because you know, before an attack, someone will do some types of reconnaissance, and he needs to know what is the best time to attack that organization. He cannot exactly deduct the exact time where it is a convenient time to attack. Okay, why? Because you are obfuscating the pattern of the usage of the machines, for instance, or the pattern of the production. He comes, for instance, he will come today, and we'll see that there is a huge smoke coming from, let's say, from the manufacturer between 10 and 12. He will come tomorrow, and he will find another time. That smoke from 10 to 12 is not coming out. But he will stay until the afternoon, and he will see that the smoke now is coming from 3 to 5, for instance, at that time. And he will come another day, he will see another time maybe. It's like a way of, let's say, hiding the pattern, let's say, of the usage of the pattern that is related to the usage of the machines, to the working time. It's like, for instance, you have a guard, okay, you have some security guard who will change their shift. Okay, for instance, the night security guard will change their shift with the day security guard at specific time at 7 o'clock in the morning or at 6 o'clock every day. That means at that time, during, let's say, the changing of the shift, there is a gap. And someone might use that gap of time where there is less, let's say, security, and they will infiltrate and get inside, let's say, that manufacturer or that CPS environment. By changing the, let's say, the pattern, today I will do the shift at 6 o'clock. Maybe in a few days we'll change that time at another time, and so on. The idea is just to hide some pattern to be discovered by the attacker in order just to launch an attack. Okay, Shabab?
Clear, doctor.
Okay, so we'll stop here, inshallah.